Regular meeting of the Claymont Board of Education for April 14th, 2025 to order. Roll call, please.
Ms. Campbell.
Here.
Mrs. Grandison. Here. Mrs. Host.
Here.
Mr. Peters.
Here.
Mrs. Wolf.
Here. Time reflects 6 o'clock. Okay, Claymont City School District will provide each student an opportunity for a lifetime of success. So all of you guys out there who are last minute Mr. Buxton class, nope. Next month, next month, sorry. It is our goal to help you have a lifetime of success. Our mission is to create an environment that nurtures, develops, and empowers each one of you students. So hopefully that's what happens in your life. Our next meeting will be May 12th at 6 p.m. here at the Claymont Administrative Office. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Martha, will you lead us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, item 3, board agenda addendums, additions, and corrections. We do have a couple of things this evening. Superintendent recommendation, item I is going to be pulled. We are having discussion tonight on the transportation changes, but we are moving the vote to next month's meeting. We are also pulling superintendent recommendation, sorry, I didn't, N 7.32.
Just a policy.
Just that policy, 7.32, as well this evening.
Also need to add
And we also need to add,
the insurance,
oh,
The
I'm sorry, the insurance.
because I had left the dollar amount there.
Oh, that's right. My apologies.
That's
So
okay.
under the treasurer's reports and recommendations, item D, where it's blank, under the dollar amount, it should be
$100,497.
$100,497. A lot of money.
Yes, it is.
Okay. Can I get a motion and a second to approve those addendums, additions, and corrections?
So moved. I second.
Martha, Solomon. Roll call, please.
Ms. Campbell.
Yes.
Mr. Peters.
Yes.
Mrs. Grandison.
Yes.
Mrs. Host.
Yes.
Mrs. Wolf.
Yes. Okay. So now I need an approval of the meeting agenda with those modifications and changes.
I'll make a motion.
Lois, thank you.
Second. Oh, sorry, Michelle. Go
Michelle,
ahead, Michelle. Yeah.
Michelle second. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Grandison.
Yes.
Mrs. Wolf.
Yes.
Ms. Campbell.
Yes.
Mrs. Host.
Yes.
Mr. Peters.
Yes.
Okay, superintendent, commendations, please.
We have several that we want to highlight. One of them be Courtney Cameron. Courtney is one of our school nurses, and she received a Tuscarawas County Board of DD Building Together Award that was recently presented earlier in the month. Today, I had the privilege with Mrs. Barnhart to go down to Columbus to participate and watch Lauren Rectennis receive the Franklin B. Walter Award. She was our Tuscarawas County representative, so she was one of 88 students to receive the Franklin B. Walter Award. So we congratulate her. We have 2 students at the high school, Shawnee Casey for the Read 180 for the acceleration and the experience, not the experience, but the growth that they've made through the Read 180, and then Mackenzie Henry for the Math 180 program. So highlighting them with their increased academics. The middle school and high school band and choir students, they competed in an alliance competition. I just saw on Facebook that they competed this past weekend as well, and they're doing very well at these competitions. So some were like solo ensembles and it's just various competitions. So I want to congratulate them, Mr. Chambers and Miss Leinert. I want to congratulate and commend the cast, crew, and staff of the musical. If you did not get a chance to go out to the high school last month, you missed a great show. So I want to congratulate them. The fine arts teachers and students for the Fine Arts Festival that was held last Thursday. As I was talking to Mrs. Barnhart on our travels today, she said, they spend all year getting that ready with the number of art projects that are up. I was getting text messages from my son and his girlfriend for the second-year-old bonus grandchild's work. So, they said he had 3 or 4 pieces in there, and just the artwork that he did specifically was phenomenal. So I just know that there were a ton of those other ones as well. So I want to congratulate them. So
Yeah, real quick, one of the things that I really appreciated the most was some of those pieces of art, whether it was like a drawing, were done by like the kindergarten and the first grade, but then the solid piece, like the penguins and the spacemen, were like they worked in ceramics and clay, and it was just really cool to see that just through the grades, really continuing through that. I really enjoyed seeing that. So having
we
that
had some-
same theme.
We had some very talented,
We do.
and the artistic side, and then also, I got to watch a lot of in the rotunda, there were people singing, and then on stage, and everybody just did a really good job. So we definitely have something to be proud of for students and
Absolutely.
staff here. Okay. Any other commendations anybody would like? Did we get any, I'd never received any requests for public
I did
participation.
Oh, back to accommodations, my
Yes.
apologies.
No.
I would just like to take this moment, and she will not appreciate that I did this, but I would like to congratulate our very own Beth Lent, who has been named one of the Claymont Foundation Alumni Award winners.
Oh, yeah.
Well, and then with that, I'll go back to, I was actually reading The Bargain Hunter, I think, Saturday, and you were presenting at, I'm not sure, I can't remember
The
exactly.
Women's
Women's
Success
Success
Series.
Women's
Series.
Success
May
Series.
2nd.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you.
Our very own Martha Campbell.
yeah.
Right. Okay, are there any additions to the administrative reports that were sent? Which, by the way, thank you to all the administration who did that. I enjoy reading those, so. Nothing. I would like to compliment both of you, Braden and Beth, for the Friday night drama event. We were evacuated from the school twice because of the fire alarm, and that just shows you guys going above and beyond what your job really is, to come out there and stand by the fire alarm or whatever you had to do to make sure that, it wasn't as disruptive as it could have been, and that we were able to get the show off. So I just want to let you know, myself, the entire drama department, entire Board of Education, we really do appreciate that extra effort that you guys put in that night. Okay, board discussion items. Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm gonna go back to a couple things before, I'll jump into bus times here in a second, and we can have Mrs. Cook talk about preschool tuition. One thing I want to touch base on is the clinic with the construction. Right now, they're laying block, the foundation. They were cutting a hole in the building for the exterior door that the students will go in from the building into the clinic. But one thing is that with this is that the grant that Altman had received for carts and for the telehealth and to have a nurse, that grant is up in limbo at this point in time. Right now, they say that they'd be prepared not to happen. Just wanted to, I asked Mrs. Lewis from the Altman Hospital to get us costs, and it'd be a 3-year contract. Each unit was $3,000, 5 carts, that's $15,000 a year, total $45,000. The carts do have a sunset, and the cost to replace a new cart would be $25,000 per cart. They are in their 3rd year. This does not, that's just cart stuff. That does not include any nursing that through the grant we have received nursing help for telehealth. So we'll know more of the status to that grant that the Altman received for telehealth by June, but just wanted to give you that. And also, she sent some PowerPoint presentation in that how much is being used in comparison. So telehealth was used in 2023-24 384 times for total for telehealth. This year, it's 164 for the 24-25 school year. Those seen in the clinic, it was 99 on 23-24, and in the clinic this year, 175. So taking that information, and it also utilization by month. So it talks about how many were using it. So the totals for the year currently through March was 159 number of appointments and a number of, so that's percentage of usage. Total was 9.76 per month. Okay. And then utilization for 23-24 for telehealth was utilized for the whole entire year of 369. And then the big months were, the winter months, the late fall, early winter, and then we had a usage of 19.64%. And then they had a 24-25, and this was with, they used it for Sandy Valley. Their usage of telehealth was 172 with 13.5, and that Sandy Valley just has the nurse of Sandy Valley covering telehealth. So, can it be done? Yes. Sandy Valley has a grant, but looking at how much it's going to cost us if the grant does not come through, 5 carts, $15,000 for a 3-year contract of $45,000. And then that does not include any money for repair, a replacement of a new cart. And I know our nurses work hard every day just doing their normal jobs, and trying to add in telehealth may become a little more difficult for them to do. So I just wanted to kind of give you those numbers for us to kind of consider, because we may be sitting here at the end of May. We didn't get a grant. Do we want to go into a 3-year contract? And, we also have to have coverage and availability to use the telehealth equipment with our current staff.
Do we typically know this time of year whether or not we've been awarded the grant, or is it typically June anyway? Did we have this conversation? Did I just miss this conversation?
Last year,
April? Because,
right.
I mean, I just don't want to, I don't want the sky to be falling and then it's not really any different than what it was in prior years. We never know this early.
Last year, we knew that we were looking at it was still in limbo, but what we were getting from Altman was, look like we're going to get the grant. It will be extended. This year, we're getting from them, don't know if it's going to happen. So that's the difference between last year and this year. Last year, they were a little more assured that they were still going to receive the grant. This year, they're a little more reluctant to say it's a go.
Because their funding comes from state or federal?
It's the state grant for this.
State grant for
Yeah.
this.
The one speaker nationwide and the Appalachian Coalition, they're the ones who are actually kind of get to funnel that money. As of right now, the difference between last year and this year, they were more confident the money was coming. This year, they're not.
So with the Altman facility will come, it's being built, right? So that goes into play next school year
I'm looking for a startup of September
of 2026,
2025.
2025, this year.
Yes.
So we would have that high school facility already done, up and running. In the event we didn't get telehealth, we would still have options available.
And we've been doing student clinic visits now because they're at our high school 2 days a week.
Right.
So we have restricted it to staff and students only. This grant with this clinic being built, it adds into the extra of the community to be able to use it for a primary care physician. But we've restricted it this last year because of the fact of just staff and student. It's more security for
Yeah.
the students.
Okay, do
do we need that many carts? Would we need a cart at the high school for Barnaby staff, you know?
If you have the alternate up and running.
Yeah.
You probably could go away with it, do away with it.
We need one less cart, I'm
One
just
less
saying.
part. Yeah, I could see that that'd be a possibility, but they would have to make sure that they could get an appointment for the student in the clinic. With a telehealth visit, there's a nurse practitioner on the other end, irregardless if they can get an appointment or not for a clinic. That's the difference between the two. And if they say that you need to go to the clinic, the nurse practitioner may say, you need additional testing, you need to get an appointment to the clinic, but that's where the two are. It's been a good luxury to have. I'll say
Right,
that.
oh, yeah.
Anybody else have any other questions? Anything else, Mr. Wrench?
I
Other
just want
administrative
to,
reports?
Beth can pull up, please, the stop times, and so we can have some discussion on that. The proposal for start and stop times switched between elementary and primary were due to busing issues. We had students that are arriving because of the routing with our high schoolers and needing to be picked up over at on Trenton Avenue and still be able to get to the high school, or dropping elementary kids off about 7:25, 7:30. Staff doesn't have to report there till 7:45. We have done some other adjustments with our staff to help kind of ease that. But the easier fix for this would be to start elementary when the primary does next year, and then the primary start at 8:15, and then they'll dismiss it there. So I had asked Mr. Henry to go back in comparison, because where do we start versus our neighboring schools, and how does that all correlate? And we're sitting right there as most school districts are, with our start time. We're kind of like in the middle between most. 8:40 Strasburg, 9 o'clock West Home, Sandy Valley 8:40. Dover, New Philly, they're starting at 9:15 and 8 o'clock. No, I'm sorry, that's Indian Valley. 8:55 for grades K3, and then grades 4, 5, 7:55. So, but our high school and middle school are starting around the same time as all those other schools as well. But it was all related back to our busing schedule and how can we get kids that go to the high school by 7:40 that live over on the Trenton Avenue area. And the elementary kids are being dropped off, short of having them ride the bus another 10 or 15 more minutes to circle back to the elementary building. That could be the fix there, but then the kids are still on the bus a little longer than would be. That's where the whole conversation actually started. I don't want to put her on the spot, but as she said, well, they end here at the end of the day anyway, or they end here in the morning. They would just then, in the mornings, they just hit the corral and they're done. It's just a natural kind of stop and flow. And then at the end of the day, they're swinging by and picking the kids up, and they're still ending there after their routes are finished. But the morning time, it just kind of fit well for them to run their normal routes, end at the primary building, and then the bus drivers are finished. So that's where the whole discussion at times was, and it was all kind of to looking at what's best for the kids as far as, how can we flip-flop it to make it better to accommodate so they're not staying there longer than they need to be. And it comes back to when the staff start, so we can adjust the classifieds schedule a little early by 15 minutes without reposting the whole entire job. But they leave earlier as well. So that's where the conversation came into play.
Is that what they're doing now? Like if they're getting dropped off, so what you're saying is the elementary school, which is Trenton's Avenue, we've got kids getting dropped off there at 7:25, and our teachers don't have to be there till 7:45. So even if you change it to 8:05, you're still 40 minutes. If a kid's getting dropped off at 7:25, you're still 40 minutes before school starts.
I understand what you're saying, but by, we're, having them be there by they're 8:15 to start of school time. Doors open for kids at 7:45. So by having that back up a little bit of time, and then that we tightened up that drop-off time so that they're not there 15 minutes prior to the start. So we're still needing to tighten up bus times.
Because they would still be there 10 minutes
Yes.
prior to the start.
But then that's easier to adjust a classified staff member coming in a little earlier, 10 minutes, to cover that time. So then you still gain some on the back end of the time.
So what are we doing now, right? Because if
They
the kids are
kinda
coming
hang
at
outside.
7:25, right? So what, they just hang outside? Okay, so we're covering it with aides now, and then they just leave early,
They leave early.
which would be the same thing if we flip the times, it's gonna be the same thing.
Mhm.
Just have them come in early.
Is there a way to look at it, since the kids are there early, to start school early? Because I think that's been a problem at the primary, the intermediate, and the elementary, of kids being dropped off early, from what I'm understanding.
I know that I've had.
To start the day
some-
early,
Yeah, I've had
Just-
where we've had kids.
since they're already there.
But the buses can't get there.
Well, just some of them are buses, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, they are being bused.
Yeah.
Um,
I don't know that all of them, Lois, but I know some of
Oh,
them are
okay.
buses.
I thought you meant
Yeah, I
just
don't know that
dropping
it's
them,
all,
yeah.
but I know.
But
some.
are all of our buses able to get there that much earlier to start the school day earlier?
I'd have to rely on Mr. Henry, but I would have to say not all of them are that way. The question is then, at the end of the day, are they all going to be able to be picked up by the time by time staff dismisses? So that was another big issue with switches. Now, if my day ended as a teacher, ends at 3:15, I'm not saying every day, I'm going to say majority of the time, all the buses have picked the kids up, and then the staff don't have any kids after that point. So that was one thing that we were really pushing hard, that my day ends at this time, I don't have any extra kids to stay over. So I didn't, like I said, I didn't say that was all the time, but because sometimes with the construction in town that we have here, Macaulay Drive, something get backed up.
It's gonna be interesting on some
Yeah.
number, but yeah. And the other thing is, I guess I even remember, believe it or not, I can remember when I was a student, but I remember like kids who walked or that their parents dropped them off seemed to be there earlier than the bus students. And when you have that situation, if we change the start of school day earlier, then people think it's okay to drop them off even earlier. And I mean, we don't want to get in that situation either.
No, and when I was a building principal, staff had to arrive at 7:15. And I would arrive between 4:07 to 7 o'clock. And at times, I had kids there before I got there. And I said, well, why are you being dropped off? And the kid would say, well, mom's got to go to work. And so, but your mom knows there's no supervision. And she said, yeah, but I mean, that's what they did. And some days were cold and some days were hot. So mom had to go to work. And I didn't have staff because they weren't there.
And then, do we have the luxury, I'll call it, of if we're going to adjust start time for a building, can we adjust all of the staff times to be there early? Like, can we adjust their time that they have to be there during the day, or is that something that we have to go through unions to establish that?
Depends upon the time change. Because if you're looking at the classified, that would require a whole separate reduction of force, and then a
Right.
whole new posting, so then
Right, I
people
get
could
that,
jump from
because
here to
it's-
there.
Because of the times would change, then what about the teaching staff?
It would be the set of the building time. They have to be there half hour before the start of the school day, So if the school day starts at 8 o'clock, they have to be there by 7:30. And then they have to stay 15 minutes after school has been dismissed. It doesn't say the specific start and stop time.
It's just, that's what, okay.
So it would affect OT, is that what you're saying?
OT would have to be, if it's beyond the 15 minutes,
Beyond the 15-minute
you have to
adjustment,
look
then
at
they would have to,
posting those things. So, I mean, it might be simpler to take a relook at busing and try to tighten up our busing schedule versus making it flip-flop. So I'll work with Mr. Henry and see what else we can come up with there. Whether it's one bus runs to Buckeye, one runs to TCC, so there are two routes, and they have to be there before one of the last buses to get students to Buckeye. So we're there between 7:45 to 7:55. They want their kids earlier, if possible. So we're one of the last buses there, but that's what we have as far as availability for driving and meeting times. And also, with me reminded, if we really get into the crunch, we don't have to bus high schoolers to school.
But which is also difficult because it's not like our high school within walking distance of
not.
where a lot of people live. But
Yeah.
I understand that we're not required to do that, so.
And I'll go back, if any elementary or any building will tell you, I would say particularly the elementaries, if we dismiss at, say, 2:55 over here, or at 3:05, grandmas and grandpas start lining up, moms and dads start lining up at least an hour and a half, 2 hours before the school dismisses. So that's not any different. They're finding a way to get them there. They're lining up, if they're being dropped off and they can get in the building at 7:20, they're there by 7:15 in line so they can get the door, drop their kid off and go. So that's not an issue as far as kids getting picked up, so.
I have to say, I was amazed when I came home early one day and I was like, the line to pick up kids was clear back at
There
Eastport,
was
clear
something
back
wrong
to
with
the
the
rest,
school.
or
I thought they were
the
dismissing
new
early.
facility there, the sports facility, and I was like,
The line
What's
here
going
wraps around
on?
The line here wraps around the top half of that block and then comes down, and people are lined up on Third Street to turn up to go up around. It's great.
What is wrong with these people? I'd be the last one in line. I
Oh,
won't
I
like it
love it.
last. You keep as long as you can.
So at this point, I'll ask Mrs. Cook to come up and she can talk about preschool tuition. And then she does have a PowerPoint to share with you.
Thank you for taking this all into consideration tonight. There are a lot of changes that are around preschool right now because a little over a year ago, preschool actually was taken out of the Department of Education, which is now the DO, and it's its own entity in the state. So it's the Department of Children and Youth. And along with it came a lot of funding changes that are just now coming down because up until this school year, we still did all the funding and figuring out tuition and income verification in-house at the office. At the beginning of this school year, we had to turn in all of our information that we had for this school year by October 1st to JFS. And JFS then took what we have already filled out because we had to have incomes and pay stubs from all the parents. We had to figure it out by hand. God love Mikkel. She's gotten her a second accounting degree and may have to have an advanced one coming here soon, but she's done an awesome job with all of that. And then we went by where it fell on the poverty scale to whether they qualified low income or they qualified over income. So our current funding comes from 4 sources. We have the ECE grant, we have preschool education fund, special education funds, the IDEA early childhood funds, and then our sliding tuition scale, which goes from anywhere from $0 per week to $55 per week per child. And that's full pay is our $55 per week. So then when we're looking at new funding, there are 3 sources coming for funding for families this year. And this year, the figuring out where the families fall in funding is going to have to go through the state of Ohio if they are below the 200% of the poverty line. So what we did is we went from having our online application back to paper applications. We still had each family, so far that everybody has turn in their pay stubs so we can figure it out like we had in the past. If they qualify under the 200% of the federal poverty level, then we have recontacted them and telling them that they could qualify for funding through the state of Ohio, and it could be under either of those two, the publicly funded childcare or the early childhood education grant. Now, down at the bottom, publicly funded childcare are for families that qualify for 0 to 145% of the federal poverty level. The ECE grant is from 146% to the 200% of the poverty level, and everybody over 200% then would pay our tuition that we would set that's over the poverty level. So, to be even more confusing of that, according to the procedure letter 13,
Can we go back? I would reiterate,
sure,
we are ECE. Public funded primary child care is new. So we are the ECE. And I'll just say this, that the publicly funded child care, you said of our students, there's a larger number that will receive that 0 to 145% federal poverty. And we have a lesser amount that are ECE, but probably less than 1,500 ECE.
I got the answer. So according to the procedure letter dated March 26th that came from the Department of Children and Youth, before this letter came out, the parents, when they applied to the state, they could choose if they wanted the publicly funded child care or if they wanted the ECE money for their preschool students. Well, as of March 26th, if a family qualifies for the PFCC, they cannot deny the PFCC to take the ECE funds to use for preschool funding. They have to choose the PFCC. Of our current 45 positions that we have had the last few years, 37 students qualify for PFCC and 8 qualify for ECE. Now, the problem with that is the next slide is the 8 students that PFCC. I'll go to the slide. After a family then applies for assistance, if they have qualified for the PFCC, they are given a copay amount. If they qualify for 0 to 100% of federal poverty level, their copay is 0. So whatever we as a district send as our tuition for the week, we have to send it to the state with their attendance was for the week, and we are reimbursed from the state out of the PFCC funds. If they qualify from 0 to 100, or I'm sorry, it's from, I meant that was a mistake, from 105 to 145%, each family then has a copay that they're responsible for the week. So in my example there, say our tuition was $50 a week, the state says their copay is $10 a week, then the state reimburses us $40. So at the end of every week, we have to take the attendance, send it to the state sends us $40, and then we have to go to the family to collect the additional 10 to make up the $50 per student. Now, it really isn't that easy as the example it is. This is the grid of what it looks like based on family income. So from 0% clear up, they even have it up clear up to 275%. And it based on the individual members of the family. But this would all be sent to us from the state based on the information that they fill out from the state, which is the same place that they would go if you were filling out for any kind of WIC help, or if you would even go on to get your voter registration where everybody has an Ohio ID. This is the same place where you would go through the state to apply for this information. So this then goes into 2 different places that we have to go. If we're to receive our ECE funds, we have to go to a Kinder Connect, which tells us we qualify for the 145% to 200%. If they qualify PFCC, then we have to go into the TAP system, which is a separate attendance system from the school attendance system that we have to use. So there'd be a second attendance system for these kiddos. It has to be done, and it has to be the parent doing the attendance. We cannot do the attendance for that, so we'll be taking double attendance for preschool. Now, for the ECE grant, which we currently receive, we get $4,250 per child, which comes out to about $118 a week to educate that child for the year. Currently, with our tuition, which is $40 to $55 a week, that is over income, those families are paying $1,440 to $1,980 a year for 4 full days of preschool. And we are the only school district in the county that offers 4 full days of preschool. New Philly's half a day, Dover's half a day, Indian Valley is a half a day. They're through the EFC, not through the EFC. They are half days. Fairway's also through the EFC, and they are 2 days and 2 days. So they do 2 full days and 2 different sets of children. So that is one reason that they looked at raising the tuition price, because what we do offer the 4 full days of that. And when we compare our tuition currently to what we are receiving from the state of Ohio to educate a child, it's less, or almost double what or over double what we're receiving from the state for the students who qualify lower. So with being a concern of where our tuition is sitting and equitable and how it is, we're below what the state is even saying what it costs to educate a child in preschool, what they're giving. Yes. So the differences are the ECE grant is what we currently use. We are provided, we know we have those 45 positions going in the school year. So when we are checking their funding and we're checking their income, we have to know that we have 45 kiddos that qualify to fill those 45 spots, or we will not receive that grant and that funding. And those 45 kiddos, we are given the money for 45 positions, but if we do not fill them, thank you, we have to send back the $42.50 per position we do not fill. So as of right now, through that grant, we received $191,250. The PFCC money currently is based also on attendance. So we have to use the app, the parent has to check them in and out, we have to send the attendance weekly, and then we would get the money back for the student's actual time in the seated school, how it is this school year. Now, I just went to a meeting at Kent State a couple weeks ago and talked to a lady from DCY. She said they are looking at next year of doing it more like ECE, where we would be awarded the spot, but that's not official. And nothing has been officially made yet.
I'm going to stop you for a second so I
Sure.
don't forget my question. That's terrible. So what you're saying is, even though you're holding a spot on the PFCC and little Joey doesn't come to school, we can't fill it in with Susie because there's a spot for her, so we lose money.
As of right now, as of this school year, yes. The lady did say they're looking to change that for next
That's
school year.
not fair.
Correct.
Is that an issue that you have a lot?
Well, sure.
There are
Where they
some,
don't
yeah,
show
there
up?
are some that don't show, but then we're calling, where are you? We're calling that they're not here. Some of them are our students. We do have some IEP students who may have some medical issues or that kind of thing, and then it's more of an extended time that they're not here. But we do have a few that are not there, but we have already been paid from the state to educate them. If we would tell them that they could no longer come, then we have to go down our list and find the next child then that would qualify also for that
But
spot.
IEPs are different.
IEPs are way different.
So this would be a regular Joey versus.
Correct.
Okay, so an IEP kid would be exempt from the attendance. Because like my Jason, he missed a lot of school. And then, so he
And
would.
each IEP kiddo is a different
Okay,
case individually.
okay. I was
So
just
that's-
wondering, because I just
And
think.
attendance in preschool is not mandatory.
No,
And in
but
the state
you're
of
taking a
Ohio
spot.
right now, it's not attendance is not mandatory until they start kindergarten.
Going to be for us to get money.
Well, exactly.
It
So
affects
they are, that was one thing that the lady said that they're looking at,
You know, everybody's not gonna take a
changing that
cut
next
that day. Okay, you only got 4 kids there. Okay, everybody's wage that day is gonna be cut. You can't do that. So
correct,
The cost is still there.
correct.
Okay, sorry.
That's okay. But when we do the private pay tuition down at the bottom, that's paid on a monthly basis. So we know exactly how much we're gonna get for the private pay per month. We know what we're gonna get for the ECE grant. It's the PFCC that can ebb and flow right now because of attendance. So if it does turn to where you are paid if the slot is filled, if they are in there or not, that would be different. But right now, we can't, starting next school year, we can't be guaranteed. And there are no local school districts that I know at this point accept PFCC because they haven't had to. But it's almost like the state is tying our hands because of where our families qualify with their income, that to receive the reimbursement for those children that's where their families qualify, we would have to accept the PFCC. And that's just something that has been used for more private preschools and like Head Starts and any other like local preschools that have been through JFS and through the system with your 5-star rating before it all turned over to our gold rating. Anybody that's been through all that and licensed through the state, but it's been all private. It hasn't, like the private homes, preschools and those kind of things. So at no school district that I'm aware of is currently accepting the PFCC. But with the state saying in that last letter that if they qualify for PFCC, they cannot deny it. They have to take that. Then they would have to go somewhere that does accept the PFCC. So it is something that we definitely need to look into accepting, because we would not get funding then for those kiddos if not, or they would have to be paying the private tuition if whatever price that we would set that at a week, if they would not, if we wouldn't accept that and they would want to come to our preschool. So that is a lot of what the discussion is right now. I think next one, that one is a mess up. I copied this, I started that one and then keep going. I didn't delete it before it got downloaded. So there are 3 future meetings still coming here in April with more information. There's an office hours on the 16th. There's a school one and a community-based one on Wednesday, and I'm going to sit in on both because it's been difficult up to this point when we've sat in on different Zoom meetings. In one meeting, they're saying something to one group of people, to school districts, and then to community-based preschools, they were saying other things. And I even talked to a lady who was at the Muskingum Valley ESC, and she said that she was able to take the paperwork for her families and just take it to JFS and turn it in for them. And all the paperwork that I've gotten is you can help them fill it out and you can direct them where to go to turn it in, but you cannot turn it in for them. They have to do that. You can help them fill things out online. You can get a hold of whoever you need to give them help. But she said, oh no, she said, I just had all my bundles and I took it to my lady at JFS and they said that was okay. So even different counties are saying different things because everything's so new. And when I was talking to her about a few things today, she was mentioning the OCLQS, which is where we have to put everything in, where we put in our pricing for the state and and that's even where the bank account information is, so we can accept these different things from the state. She wasn't even sure about that system because they're so brand new at JFS to the preschool side of things. So our local lady in Tuscarawas County is Michelle Shook, and she has gotten back to me with any question I have, and a lot of times she's just like, I have no idea, I'm going to ask. And it's because it's all new to her also. So, but she's been very good at getting.
handling it? Michelle Shook?
Michelle Shook is our contact at Tuscarawas County, and that's the second person since it started in October through Tuscarawas County also. So, like I said, I have 3 upcoming meetings here in April, hoping to have more information and more things on that. So that's why the discussion of looking at the price of the preschool and what we need to do, because funding things through the state are changing.
On your agenda, we have it proposed to raise it to $100. And that came from our finance committee meeting that we had recently, but the one slide that she said, it makes more sense to go to $118 a week, because that's what we can get reimbursed from the state and get more of our money back that way to help cover costs. So I don't know if we want to look at or have a conversation, okay, to move it to 118 because of what Kelly had just showed us as far as how we can get the co-pays covered. Because if we're ahead of 118, we get there covered. If we do it $100, it's not covering everything, but we're getting $18 more a week by going 118.
And if I took this year's ECE money, the $191,250, and our tuition that we've collected, which is $47,362, this year, just those 2, we received $238,612. 64 of our students qualify for ESC or paying on our sliding scale with tuition. By doing that at equal to $100 a week, because that was on the agenda, so that's what I looked at, we'd be at $230,400. So it'd be a difference of just a little over $8,000 from what we're currently receiving, which in that number can go up and down depending on the number of IEP students also that we have, because that's another whole funding different situation with the IEP students too. So.
And just to put it in perspective, like when we started this conversation too, like I was told that when preschool was brought to Claymont years ago, that it was kind of like a self-funded. And when I sat down and looked at the numbers with all of the funding that we received from state tuition and everything, we are still taking almost $350,000 from our general fund to support the preschool.
Yeah, so when it comes, we're in the business of educate. So we want to do what's best for students, but you also have to have money to be able to do what you can do best for kids. So when you're looking at a loss of $350,000, how are you going to do things with no money for that type of scenario? So as Kelly's proposing to raise it from $100 to $118 a week to help cover some of the costs with these changes. And I truly think that the state is trying to take away public preschool from schools and pushing it to the privates and to the JFSs. I think that's where they're trying to make that big push. Because if you look at the list of how things are operating, it's always job and family services first. Schools are down on the bottom of the list.
So where does Head Start fall in there? I mean,
They're above us.
they're above us.
And when the Department of Children and Youth started, the people who were put in charge of Department of Children and Youth are from the JFS side of things. And they took a lot of their staff with them, and there were very few that came from the Department of Education to join that staff. So and like even the new federal poverty levels aren't coming out till October 1st. Well, a lot of JFS things, their fiscal year ends September 30th. Well, that doesn't help the school districts because we start well before September 30th. So it's almost like a lot of the timelines are kind of falling on the same timelines through JFS that they're already ready, or they're already used to for their calendar years and that their fiscal years and the things that they do that. So it's tough to look at when they say the federal poverty levels for next year aren't even coming down out to October when we're having everybody agree to their tuition now, according to the federal guide poverty levels that we've used this current year, because we don't get the new ones until October.
Okay, so then would you have to redo them then again in October? Because that's how,
Well, and that, I don't know, because we haven't come across this yet. In the past, we just did it once a year.
it's once a year, but
And we were allowed to, we
Here
started
I
at March
am, here
1st
I
because
am.
we got pay stubs from February.
I find out that the poverty level and I'm paying my additional tuition, I'm like, whoa, I want the new guidelines.
Right,
You know
and
what I mean?
I can't say, because we haven't used PFC and C at all before, could that change come October 1st and they say, okay, the new guidelines are in, your information's in here, well, now we go by the new numbers, so here's their
So
new
we
copay,
could-
and
yeah.
here's your new
Yeah, they.
difference
adjusted
of what,
it
we're
to
yes,
have
they
it.
may adjust it, I don't know, because we've never gone through that yet. You
Or
know,
is it gonna be more work on your part? Oh, probably more work on your part.
yeah, I mean, it's,
Probably
there's-
more work on
Oh,
Kelly
and that's what I said, it's gonna be more work
on
on,
this whole thing.
I answered my own question.
right, I mean, it could be, it's definitely something that I think we can figure out, it's gonna be feeling through it this first year. It's gonna be, you know, once everything, like we said, every time we get on a new Zoom, something's changed. So until things are set in stone with the state, it's gonna be continual changing. So,
Well, I appreciate you and Jody's work on this because I know it's confusing. I've been reading a little bit about it and it's just like, I don't understand that funding, why they
it
changed
is confusing, but it is so important that we have the preschool hooked to the school, that it can feed right into the school. That's the hard part of looking, when you look at the numbers, it's, you know, you still want, it is very warm right now. You know, we still want that here in the district for the students, for a lot of students who may not be able to afford private preschools, which when we've compared to some other private preschools are more expensive than what we're doing now. So we definitely want to try to keep that as long as we can here at Claymont for our students and our families. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kelly.
Thank you, Kelly. I really appreciate it because it sounds like you've gotten a whole new education too. Yeah. Yeah, that's good.
Okay.
HVAC
Any other questions or comments regarding board discussion items? Okay. So entertain a motion and a second to approve a resolution in support of the Fair School Funding Plan.
I will make that motion.
And I will second.
Martha, Lois. Is there any discussion? Anybody have any questions about it? Martha sent it to all of us board members
Yeah,
earlier.
I just think it's really, really important that we definitely keep an eye on this and try and educate people as best we can about the way the funding is happening with the state now. Fortunately, the House did make a change before they passed it, increasing it, not leaving on those 22 or 23 numbers. But I think that we just really need to pay attention, and it's very frustrating. I think that as we are trying to run public schools, that they are diminishing the amount of money coming to public schools, yet allowing more money to go to private schools.
The front page of the
Yet, all of the guidelines that have previously been established for education in public schools in the state of Ohio by the state legislature do not have to be followed by those private schools. For example, I know there's a lot of private schools across the state that have waiting lists at the grade 3 level. And then all of a sudden they lose those kids after grade 3 because a lot of those schools, those parents don't want their kids to have to go through the whole 3rd grade reading process. And then we'll see more of an influx coming into public schools in the 4th grade. And I think we need to try and be as diligent as we can possibly be to stay after our state legislators to realize the importance of where we are on education and that this needs to be equal footing across the state. You know, they're looking at other things that are going to change how we pay people and what we pay people, but it's only going to apply to education service centers and public schools. But the private school is still going to get the money, but they don't have to go by those new guidelines they're talking about either. And I just think this is very important that we make sure that we stay on top of this and that we let people understand that we are here for our students and we want to do what's best for them. But we're also going to be in a situation, and there are other issues coming up too, that, you know, where our funding could be diminished again, and we just can't afford that. You know, when you're in a situation where you have between 80 and 85% of your budget going just for salaries and fringe benefits, and obviously we have to pay our educators, but then that leaves us a little over 15% to cover everything else that we're required to do as public schools, to keep our buildings up, to make sure we have books and do all of that. And when they keep reducing the amount of money or not wanting to increase it, I'm not a Browns fan, I'll tell you that. I am a football fan, but I'm not a Browns fan. But we don't have money in Ohio to fund education, but we're going to go ahead and give $60 million to, or 600, whatever it is, 600 million
And
dollars.
Cincinnati just petitioned for 350.
Yeah, and I think they might consider that, because before they weren't going to consider that because they didn't have a million people in
Yeah, just I hope.
in
that-
here in their county, so they were going to not allow that to happen. But I mean, I'm not saying to some degree that sports aren't important, because I love sports, but I just think that we need to understand that their priority is not educating the students in this state at the public education level. And I just think that it's very important that we remain diligent in trying to make sure that we truly have fair
Well,
funding.
it's not apples to apples.
Not apples to apples at all, no.
We have different rules that we have to follow, and they don't have to, and they're gonna get paid, you know.
I want to make note, though, that Governor DeWine's proposal was to phase in the fair school funding. In the House proposal, was to phase in the fair school funding as well. But they said, not now.
Yeah.
Right.
So they took that out. So when you do that, we're on transitional gap aid. So it's transitional gap, Kim can better explain it than I, but that transitional gap aid is what helps us stay afloat. And when we went to fair school funding plan, that transitional gap aid, as we went into phasing 5 and 6, and it's completely implemented, we would be off transitional gap aid because we would be funded where we would need to be. There's been a state push on average, as far as across the state, to decrease the state share for all school systems with their percent. So about 20 years ago, they were sitting around 47%. Out of these proposals, on average, they're saying fund schools at 32%. So it's really a drastic cut. And what they're saying is, well, you know what? If your local community wants to keep your local school, put it on them. And that's wrong from the legislatures. I was sitting in a master's class back in 1996 when the Rolfe case went into effect. And they talked about the Rolfe because schools weren't funded fairly. And they're saying that it costs more in Appalachia to educate a kid than it does in the greater cities. It costs more. You just look at the information. And so they filed that lawsuit. Legislature saw that, Supreme Court saw it. Finally, the court systems in Ohio said, hey, you're not funded correctly, figure it out. It took Bob Cupp and Patterson, for the Cup Patterson, for the fair school funding, along with superintendents and treasurers, to come up with the fair school funding plan. And now they're saying it's in place. And when I talked to Jody Salvo on Thursday, hey, you guys aren't losing money. Bull.
Yeah. Well, that's like saying you're gonna get an increase this year of $1 an hour. Now, especially right now, the cost of everything up is going more, or is around you is going up more than $1 an hour. But it's okay, you're gonna get that $1 an hour, so you're not losing money. Well, maybe not in my paycheck, but what I have to pay out to take care of my family is. And I just think that they've gotten so far away from that funding. It took them forever to actually come up with the plan. And then now they're backing down from it. And honestly, as sad as it is to say, what I'm seeing and what I'm even hearing from at least one person who's planning to run for governor next year, that we're really looking at trying to eliminate public schools. Who's going to educate our kids? Because there's only one private school, essentially the Central Catholic, here in the county. They can't take all the kids from all the other schools in this county. They can't take all those kids. They don't have the facilities to do it. And that's what it's looking like right now, is we're going to help the private schools more than we're going to help the public schools. And that's not right. It's not fair. It's not right. And it's not fair to our kids. And we are very fortunate because we have amazing staff, amazing administration here, that our kids, we are doing the best that we can do, and we are trying to go above and beyond in all the educational avenues that we take. But if they're going to keep cutting our money, that's going to cost us all across the board. And I just think by passing this resolution, it lets people know that we truly believe in how important it is for fair school funding for public schools in the state of Ohio. Okay, I'll step down off my soapbox.
You're good. No, we all agree, Martha, so thank you for that. Okay, any other discussion? Roll call.
Ms. Campbell,
Absolutely, yes.
Mrs. Grandison,
Yes.
Mrs. Yost, Host.
Change your last
Yeah.
name? Okay.
Mrs. Host, sorry about that. Mr. Peters
Yes.
and Mrs. Wolf.
Yes. Okay, I need a motion and a second to approve a resolution to reallocate inside millage. I'll make that motion.
I,
I'll second it. Any discussion? Roll call.
Mrs. Host,
Yes.
Mr. Peters, Ms. Campbell,
yes.
Mrs. Grandison,
Yes.
and Mrs. Wolf.
Yes. Okay, treasurer's report and recommendations.
Yeah. I always feel like I'm Debbie Downer when I talk about this, so I apologize up front. So,
It's
but
reality.
it's, yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, it's just,
You're good.
okay, so we'll take a look here. We're looking 9 months into the fiscal year through March now. Total revenues are a little bit higher than the budget at 79.67% on a 75% percentage right now. That is normally because of the property taxes being received. I don't split it out by 12 months, but we only receive property taxes twice a year. Fiscal year, we're still up 0.07% over last year. $314,000 received in interest. We did get the final settlement of the property taxes, and we should be getting the rollback of homestead from the state this month. Our expenditures slightly lower at 71.97%. That is up 3.28% over last year, with 84.13% of expenditures going to salaries and benefits. So total revenues in the general fund for this year is almost 18.2 million, with expenses at 16.4. We did have a March surplus of 636,000. That was due of getting the property tax. For the fiscal year, we're up 1.7 million with a true days cash of 148.94. State and federal programs for the month, it got reimbursements of 120,000 with 107 for the breakfast and lunches. So total fund balances, we're at $10,418,000. The next couple of slides, Brian and I went to a conference last week, and every single day we were hearing about funding. They were trying to get us pumped and ready to go out and speak to our legislatures, but it was a little bit more depressing than what I got pumped for. But anyways, as you mentioned, that House budget was proposed and it was passed last Wednesday. Every district in the state of Ohio is going to see an increase in funding. These are our amounts for next year. $28,000 and $14,000 over the next 2 years. I mean, that's better than Governor DeWine's proposal of losing $750,000 and $780,000, but that's still nothing. I mean, there's also a requirement that the County Budget Commission is going to be looking at property taxes, perhaps reducing them. If we have a carryover balance in our general fund, that's over 30% of our expenditures for the prior year. So when I looked back to last year, we ended at 33%. And if I'm looking at my projected from the November forecast, this year would be 33.12%.
Now, that is an increase. It was 25%, right?
Yes,
They were
looking at,
increasing it
on
to 30.
Tuesday, they did another amendment and
Okay.
went up to 30%.
What happens to the schools that have lots of,
Lots of money.
lots of money,
Well,
like, so like Harrison Central that gets all that
Right, well,
money?
they have problems.
Yeah, they do.
But it goes back.
I want that.
But it goes, but no, it goes back to, because Kim was talking and it said that, where did that 25%? Well, they were just talking with the treasurer in some district, what's a good amount of carryover? And that person said, 25%
At the minimum.
at the minimum. And so, but there are districts with 365 days of true cash. So a Harrison Central, a Switzerland of Ohio, the Belmont County Schools, because they're sitting rich in oil and gas money years ago. We were talking with some of the treasurers from those areas and saying, what are you going to do? The one treasurer who's sitting on said, well, our high school is in terrible, terrible condition. Maybe we can move that money and build a new high school from that because it's like 100 years old. Because that would be only one of the ways we would get there, and move money to the PI and build from the PI fund, permanent improvement. There's other districts say, I need that money because come August, September, if I don't have that carryover, I can't make payroll.
Right.
And so if we're sitting here at 33% and 33.12.
Well, how do you maintain them buildings?
That's the thing.
You
It's
gotta
where-
have a backup, just like you do in your home. What if the hot water tank goes out?
That would be, because right now, the proposed budget's sitting with the Senate, and it would be hitting up Al Landis. He's home right now for 2 weeks because they're on break, but hitting up Al Landis and talking about how this isn't right. Now, he did make a comment in the paper, he's all for vouchers, he's all for fair funding and going wherever you want to go, and but that level the playing field with all the other schools. And also, when you talk about that, and I'm getting on my soapbox, but when you talk about those schools, chartered and non-chartered, they don't have to take every kid that we have to take. So if they have a child who, we talked about IEP students earlier, if that IEP student costs us as a district more money, without being discriminatory, I don't want how I work this to say, but if it costs more than the average student, that school's not going to be taking that kid because they're only getting $8,400. If it costs $25,000 to educate that student, they're not taking that kid. But that's part of our operation cost.
They're gonna discriminate. It's gonna be,
Yes.
you're gonna line up and I'm taking you,
Well,
and you.
it's
The rest of
already
you have
happened because we've had students return because of various reasons from those buildings. So, I'll step off my soapbox and go to the next slide.
Okay, and then one other thing is they're gonna reduce the forecast from a 5-year forecast to a 3-year forecast.
At least that's
Which, we've always kind of said that anyway, the first 3 years is
So we need to.
Beyond that, it's a guess.
Yes.
While we're still on this, I have just a, I'll say simple question, but it's not really simple. So let's look at, just for example, let's look at salaries for next year. As you know, our staff and our certified, they're under contract. So there is guaranteed amounts of money that are gonna increase. Are they gonna increase by $28,000? Yeah, it's gonna be a lot more than $28,000, right? So what the increase we're gonna be getting, what we're gonna get from the state is not even gonna cover what we already know our costs are gonna be for next year.
And we can't keep over 33% because
Yeah,
we're not allowed to have it.
I mean, we are in the business of educating students, and I know people don't like to use the name business with education, but it is. And in addition to making sure that we are getting our job done and educating students, we also have to be fiscally responsible. And they're not doing much to help us.
No, they're not. No, they're not.
Okay, sorry.
Okay, next slide.
Sorry.
So here's some talking points regarding cash balances that we were talking about last week and stuff. It overlooks the unique circumstances of each district and the reasons of their cash balances, like Brian was saying, you know, the one district he mentioned, they were in fiscal emergency just a few years ago, came out of it in 2017. So that treasurer, I know personally, you know, she likes to hoard her money because I'm not going back into fiscal emergency, you know, so the cyclical nature of levy approvals results in increase of reserves in the early years. So that funding can stretch out then through the entire levy process. And then cash reserves reflect the need to prepare for uncertainties. A lot of time, you know, it just, there's all kinds of reasons. So it now moves to the Senate. The Senate will come out with their own budget proposal. So Al Landis is our senator. If anybody wants to reach out to him, it would be much appreciated.
Seriously, taking that email address, because they're elected by the people in this district, feel free to
Right.
comment about it, because I mean, it's gonna impact every student in this district,
Yeah.
as well as the staff, the people in our community. that get affected as well.
Absolutely.
I highly recommend anyone, please reach out and contact him. Unfortunately for him, I haven't.
Okay, this last slide kind of was, Martha had started asking some questions, so I'm like, it's just better to put some stuff out there for everybody to see. It reduces overall funding for public schools compared to if they would fully fund the Fair School Funding Plan. And then it increases the funding though for vouchers and non-publics. So for the statewide average, base cost per pupil is $8,241. Claymont's district-based cost is $8,183, and that's made up at $2,800 received from the local property taxes, and our state share, which is 64.85%. So when Brian was saying the average state, they want to get down to like 32%. We've gone from like 72% a couple years ago, and now we're down to 65%. So, I mean, we have seen less state share. Which over time, the state share will reduce, local capacity is going to increase. Now, when you look at the non-public, so this Ed Choice scholarships that they just opened up the expansion, I think last year was, I think, the first year of that. Opened up the door for district students to take the funding from public schools to the private sector. And as we mentioned, there was that Times Reporter article that was just last Friday, and took some stats from that. 90% of Tuscarawas Central Catholic students at each building are attending tuition free. So when you look at it, family households income at or below 450% of the federal poverty level are awarded the maximum scholarship. Their tuitions for elementary is $6,166. Their high school tuition is $8,406. So if they're getting maximum scholarship, full funded, is $8,406, but we're only getting $8,183.
More transport.
So we're losing money.
And we transport.
We're
the families.
transport.
We have to transport them.
We are required to do that. If you attend
Yep.
Tuscarawas Central Catholic, we are required to transport.
So
We're not
that,
getting money for that.
so I found some reports that reflected last year's school year and this year's school year.
There were 87 students that took the Ed Choice expansion last year. 6 of them were truly low-income families, 81 of them were not. There were 57 new applications last year with 30 renewals. So this year, we've got 114 students, 22 low income, 92 not, 34 new applications to 80 renewal. Yeah. So just,
And we're not the only school district in Tuscarawas County that's experiencing this. And it doesn't mean that you have to go to Tuscarawas Central Catholic either. You go to another chartered and non-public school.
Okay, are you finished? with
I'm
presentation?
finished.
Okay, I need a motion
Other
and
good news, yeah.
a motion and a second to approve the treasurer's items.
I make a move,
Lois,
I'll second it.
Martha, is there any discussion?
just to reiterate, like Martha said, this is something, like, we're here to educate the students, but in my position, I'm sitting to make sure that the district stays fiscally sound. So, you know, I do take a lot of stress, or I put a lot of stress on myself because of this. Oh, well, yeah, that's why I haven't. So, you know, I'm just trying to do
No,
the best for everybody.
And in
Yeah.
all honesty, I appreciate your diligence in all that you're doing, because you're staying on top of everything. And I mean, every time I call you, because what I have to deal with budget-wise at my department is completely different than how it is here. And I appreciate that, like, very quick with your responses, letting me know. Even when I call and ask you something, you're like, I have no idea, but I'll find out.
Yeah.
And you get right back to me. So that is very much appreciated. So thank you for doing your job. It's much appreciated.
don't take the vote.
Okay, roll call.
Mrs. Grandison?
Yes.
Ms. Campbell?
Yes.
Mrs. Host?
Yes.
Mr. Peters?
Yes.
Mrs. Wolf?
Yes. Okay, superintendent's recommendations.
Motion and a second.
Oh, I'll make that motion.
All right, so we have some, I want to give those that are retiring some individuality to it. So we had Joyce Mehawk, who's retiring June 5th. It's Charlotte Sayre, who's here. She's retiring June 5th.
I mean, we're not glad to see you go, Charlotte, especially if you have the best birthday in the world.
We had Judy McDivitt, she retired March 28th. We had some resignations, Sheila Peters, the 14th of March, Chris Miles, 20th of March, Madison Garrett, 20th of March, and Krista Metzger will be at the end of the school year. We have an unpaid leave for Clara Warner, that'll be for next school year. Unpaid leave for Tricia Orr, that's from the 11th of April through August 14th. We have an out-of-state field trip for Mr. Mr. Zimmerman's Business Career Tech students. That'll be May 8th. They're going to Pittsburgh for that trip. Elementary building use for summer camp for kids with Mrs. Warner. That's the 9th through the 13th, per the request form for building use. We have a table I going into J. We have tuition at $100 per week for next school year. If we want to come back next month, and if we want to take a look at 118 per Mrs. Cook's presentation, we may want to do that after consideration.
Is it possible to change that now?
We have a finance meeting actually in 2
Oh,
weeks, so
got it.
I would prefer to
Yeah,
have a
that's fine.
finance meeting
Yeah.
and talk about it first.
Yes.
So
That's good.
we're gonna
Get
go
that
ahead and vote
input.
on this one here.
That's
Okay.
what this is what we had already talked about in the finance meeting.
We have the handbooks, a shared handbook that would be intermediate, middle school, and high school. When you had your handbooks, Martha had some questions, so it's what's highlighted. Things were building specific in there, sort of like name and address, phone numbers. So if you were calling off for attendance, there's a different line for building. I want to highlight, though, that this year, according to the state, we were allowed to have certain times we were allowed to have cell phones. So we offered that. Next school year, if it's during instructional time, if your day starts at period 1, 7:40, and you're not done you're done at 2:40, your cell phone's not with you. So there will be no cell phones during the school day. Just letting the kids know that. So when you're walking down the halls and chit-chatting and things like that, that'll be done for next school year.
That's from the state.
That
It's
is-
not
No, well,
Claymont. It's not
It would be
state
our,
law.
it'll be our enforcement for next year, but it is in the budget proposal to eliminate from the state as well. So if it doesn't go through, we're also adhering to it for the buildings as well. Okay,
There are exceptions to that though, correct? Like, for example, if you remember at the last meeting, my alarm went off because my sugar was low. But if you have a device that you have to use your phone to test a monitor, that's
part of an IEP,
Yeah.
yeah, yes. Approve Immaculate Conception for the use of buses for the 14th, that'd be today and then Wednesday, and then they're paying for the costs on those dates. We have a Title III English Learners Consortium contract with the Stark County ESC. We have board policies that are listed. And students, we're going to have some changes under dress code for next school year as well. We have tabled 7.32, so the rest of them there are listed. Tina Armstrong will be a substitute. She's filling in for music for the remainder of the school year. And then we have some substitutes. We have some custodians. We do have a bus driver, only wants to do trips from that. So those are the items that I have for those.
Okay, any discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Campbell,
yes.
Mrs. Grandison,
Yes.
Mrs. Host,
Yes.
Mr. Peters,
Yes.
Mrs. Wolf. Yes.
And we have some athletic-related items that are recommendation from our athletic director, Justin Jones. Supplementals, we have summer and winter weightlifting with John McCluskey, girls basketball with Allison Delaney, Dave White is assistant, Jeff Merklin is assistant, and bowling, Brian Duvall and Bill Young as head and assistant respectively. And then he had presented the game workers for all the Ohio High School Athletic Association, IVC showcases, the state tournament that we held for Fort Fry and Rootstown back in, that was March, yeah. So that seemed like a long time ago, but it really wasn't.
It's very well planned.
Okay, I need a motion and a second.
I'll make the motion.
Martha,
Second.
Lois, any discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Campbell,
Yes.
Mrs. Grandison,
Yes.
Mrs. Host,
Yes.
Mr. Peters,
Abstain.
and Mrs. Wolf.
Yes. Okay, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Martha,
I'll second it.
Michelle, 7:18.